If you've spent enough time in deep forests, you learn one thing above all else. The woods are never truly silent. There are always birds, the wind, or the movement of branches. So when the forest suddenly goes completely quiet, you know something is wrong. This case comes from the rugged backcountry of Northern California. It is a region of dense, vertical terrain where the wilderness feels endless and the isolation is absolute. Daniel Harper, a former Army Ranger, spent 10 years as a search and rescue volunteer here. He was used to the standard procedures of finding lost hikers, tracking prints, checking trailheads, and sweeping the brush in organized grids. In terrain this thick, rescuers rely on their senses to bridge the gaps that maps can't cover. You listen for a whistle, or a shout, or the snap of a twig. In the deep woods, sound is often the only way to know what's moving just out of sight. In October 2018, Ryan Walker, a solo camper, vanished. His truck was found parked near an old trailhead, but he had failed to return on schedule. When the search team reached his campsite, they found everything exactly as it should be. His tent was upright, his sleeping bag was laid out. There was no blood, no sign of a struggle, and no tracks leading away into the dirt. But inside the tent, the rescuers found Ryan's hiking boots. In this part of the mountains, the ground is sharp and the brush is thick. No one hikes out here barefoot. Then they found a notebook beside the cold fire. On the final page, a single sentence had been written over and over again, filling every inch of the paper. It keeps whistling. This left the team with a set of facts that contradicted every search and rescue model. Ryan hadn't wandered off, and he hadn't been dragged away. He had simply disappeared from a campsite he was seemingly too afraid to leave. As the sun set, the team established a base camp. Night in the deep forest changes your perception. Distances become harder to judge, and every small sound is amplified by the silence. Around midnight, Daniel woke up to a total absence of sound. No insects, no wind, and no movement. The forest had become a vacuum. Then he heard it, a 3-note whistle. It sounded like it came from deep within the trees. Seconds later, the sound moved. It jumped from the east to behind camp, then uphill, moving faster than any human could navigate the dark terrain. A veteran rescuer stood up, his face pale. He gave the group a single instruction: if you hear whistling out there, don't whistle back. The team realized they weren't just looking for a missing person anymore. Something was circling them, using the whistle to gauge their position in the dark. At 2:17 a.m., a volunteer, half asleep and thinking it was another team member, whistled back. The forest instantly fell into a dead silence that felt even heavier than before. Moments later, a voice answered from the trees. It wasn't a whistle this time. It was a perfect mimicry of the volunteer's own voice, repeating his own sounds back to him from the darkness. Then the voices changed. Daniel heard his wife calling. Another heard his daughter crying. Each heard a different loved one, exactly as they sounded at home. At dawn, they found the evidence of what had been happening just outside the firelight. Fresh, bare footprints surrounded the tents. Some pointed toward the camp, while others stopped abruptly in the clearing, as if the person making them simply vanished mid-step. The mimicry hadn't just been a sound, it was an invitation. Whatever was in the woods was using the voices of their families to try and draw the searchers away into the dark. On the second day, the search intensified. The team pushed further into a section of the woods where the brush was nearly impenetrable. They found a perfectly circular clearing, 20 feet across. Inside the circle, there was no grass, no shrubs, and no animal tracks. Just bare, gray dirt. In the exact center of this circle sat Ryan's backpack. It was placed neatly on the ground, untouched. Inside the bag was Ryan's phone. Investigators found a single audio recording from the night he disappeared. On the tape, you can hear the wind and the fire, followed by that same 3-note whistle. Ryan's voice asks, "Who's out there?" There is a long silence. Then the whistle sounds again, much closer. And finally, a voice answers Ryan from right outside his tent. It is Ryan's own voice, repeating his question back to him. The recording provided the first piece of hard evidence. The sounds the rescuers heard weren't tricks of the wind or signs of fatigue. The mimicry was an external reality, captured on a digital file. That afternoon, they finally found Ryan. He was 3 miles from camp, sitting at the base of a large tree. He was barefoot and completely still. He was found against a massive pine in a section of the forest where the light rarely hits the ground. The area felt heavy, cold, and entirely isolated from the rest of the mountain. There were no injuries on his body and no signs that he had died of exposure. But his eyes were wide open, his face frozen in an expression of absolute terror. Above his head, 3 words had been carved deep into the bark of the tree. The marks were fresh and aggressive, as if they had been gouged into the wood in a hurry. It whistled back. The carving confirms Ryan's final moments. He had heard the whistle, he had answered it, and he had realized, too late, that the sound he was following wasn't human. The official report listed the cause of death as disorientation and exposure. The case was closed. But the volunteers who were there didn't believe it. Daniel Harper never returned to those woods. The experience of hearing a voice he knew coming from a place it couldn't be left a mark that no official report could erase. Even years later, when he's hiking in different forests, Daniel occasionally hears a whistle or the sound of his name drifting through the trees. He never stops to check. He now follows a single rule for the wilderness. If you hear a familiar voice calling to you from the deep woods at night, you don't answer and you don't follow it. Because in the deepest parts of the forest, the greatest danger isn't something that hunts with strength or speed. It's the thing that waits for you to answer, using your own voice to lead you away from the light.